Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Clallam EDC Coffee Chat, Coffee with Colleen. We are excited today to have our friends and partners from the Center for Inclusive Entrepreneurship join us today. That's Rick Dickinson, Micah Jonet, and Michelle Pruden. A couple of housekeeping items that I always go over is please have your Zoom settings on mute so that we don't inadvertently hear any background noise. And then additionally, if you have questions, Rick is fine with you either raising your hand and we'll call on you to ask them, or alternatively, if you'd rather just put the question in the chat, I can ask it for you. So with that, I am going to pass it over to Rick to share with us what CIE has been up to lately. Thanks so much for joining us, guys.
All right, I will share my screen. Is everybody seeing my slide deck now?
Yes, looks good.
Excellent. All right. And I am not going to have a good view of the chat, so if something hits the chat, feel free to let me know. And as we discussed a minute ago, feel free to jump in with questions. I am cool with that. So yeah, CIE, I see a lot of friendly faces on this call. I know a lot of you, but in case there are some of you who don't know who we are, I'm just going to do kind of a brief introduction right off the bat. And then I'm going to get more into the real nitty gritty, the why we do what we do. And we'll take it from there. Thought that was going to work. All right. So who is CIE? We help people start small businesses. That's fundamentally what we do. It's our focus. And we'll get a little bit more into the nuances of that. But we are an economic development organization with sort of a, I guess if there was a Venn diagram with social services and economic development, we'd be the one thing in the middle. So, so our vision is for thriving rural communities and really thriving rural economies. And what that, that vision could be shared by a lot of people, probably a lot of organizations on this call share that same basic vision of thriving rural communities. What that looks like for us is, back up. Trying to drive with my arrow keys and it's not liking it. What that looks like for us is really a focus on small business, the very smallest pre-venture, early stage businesses. And we'll get into that in a second. Where we work, some of you may not know, we started back in 2019 here on the Olympic Peninsula. Basically me and I like to say me and a fistful of flyers wandering around trying to get people to show up at our first Start Simple class. Wasn't called that back then, but which happened in September of 2019 and was held, Matthew, you'll appreciate this, it was held at the Squim Civic Center in your meeting room. That was where our first class was. Since then, we have grown. We've expanded over to our North Cascades region, which is really sort of focused on Mount Vernon. We cover primarily Skagit and Island counties with parts of rural Snohomish and Whatcom mixed in. And then we are also in what we call our Palouse region, which is Whitman, Garfield, and Asotin counties, as well as Columbia. And then we just recently launched in what we're calling the Columbia Basin, Tri-Cities area. So we're covering those counties and sort of creeping up into Adams and Grant and over to Yakima. In fact, we just signed an agreement with the city of Grandview. They're doing a kind of a downtown revitalization project, and we're going to be coaching up some of their entrepreneurs. So this is where we are across the state. Our team here on the peninsula is Micah Jonet, our business advisor. You've been with us since 2020, right, Micah? And then Michelle Pruden, our outreach coordinator. And how long have you been with us, Michelle?
Just over a year.
Just over a year, yeah. And then obviously that long-haired guy is me, and I started in 2019. And I'm program director and business advisor, so / title there. And we'll have our contact information at the end of the slide deck, but that's us. All right, so what do we do here? The goal is really a thriving local economy. And what that looks like for us is making business ownership possible for everyone. 99.9% of businesses are small businesses. Now that's according to SBA designation of what a small business is, which is 500 or fewer employees. Colleen, do we have any non-small businesses by that definition?
No. Nope, we do not.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a tribe, and we have governments that are larger than that, right. But we do not have for-profit businesses that are larger than that.
Yeah. So every business on the peninsula is a small business by that definition. We work way lower than that, much smaller than that. We work with micro enterprises, and that's typically viewed as 5 or fewer employees or 10 or fewer employees. But really, most of the businesses we work with are 1, maybe 2 employees, at least when we're helping them get rolling. That may not be their end goal. They may have, they may be intending to grow beyond that. But one of the challenges of building an economy is that there are folks who struggle to access it. Whether that's systemic barriers, financial, even language barriers, technology barriers, cultural barriers. There can be any number of things that make it more challenging for some folks to start businesses. And those are the ones that we focus on helping. And really the biggest challenge to those folks is just making that initial leap. So that's being able to have the knowledge, the skills, the business skills. A lot of folks, they are a very good tile setter, for example, a recent client, but have never run a business. So they don't know a lot of the things about that. So a lot of times the barrier is financial capital, and it isn't necessarily a lot of money that's required, but it is just a bit more than what they are able to access. And a lot of times people really need to understand how to assess the feasibility of their business model. And then finally, one of the main things that we find folks need is just confidence, belief in themselves that, yeah, you can do this, and just a little bit of, guidance of, hey, yeah, that's a great plan. This might not work out for you. And then they have that clarity and confidence to roll. So, sorry, moving my video around. Yeah. All right, there we go. So what is our solution? It is really just guidance. I like to think of us as guides. And the 5 main areas that we focus on are training, advising, one-on-one advising, and really one-on-one advising is the bulk of what we do. It is, 75% or more of what we do is just sitting down one-on-one with business owners and answering their questions, setting their milestones, next steps, follow up. It's really just a lot of that one-on-one guidance. We also provide access to capital. We don't typically provide capital ourselves. That's not the business we're in, but we have various connections and pools of money that we can help people access and prepare business plans for, and go to credit unions and banks and other lenders, including local investment networks. We also provide networking opportunities and events, and that is really one of the primary purviews of Michelle. In fact, the picture behind my head is from Port Angeles Harbor a couple of weeks ago, when we were doing a networking event at the Field Arts and Events Hall, which was a really fun event. We had about 30 people show up. So a lot of it is providing folks with opportunities just to share and tell war stories and share resources. And we're finding that people are really hungry for that. And then finally, mentoring. We have a mentoring platform called 10,000 Coffees, or we call it the Coffee Shop. And we are always looking for folks who would be interested in providing mentorship to entrepreneurs, either within the same industry or just somebody who has experience of any kind in that. So those are the things that we provide. Any questions? Well, I'll just breathe for a second, see if there are any questions out there yet.
I have a question. Rick,
Yeah.
how does CIE, this goes back to one of your first slides, how does CIE decide what communities they want to enter into?
Such a great question. I'm going to get I'll be there in a moment. So,
Okay.
So what makes us different? Like, yeah, there are other, business support organizations in the community. How are we different than, say, the Chambers or the SPDC or Colleen or the NODC? Everyone has a different role, and ours really is that we focus on bridging that gap and helping people who are on the margins economically, typically, or are facing a challenge of some kind, or just maybe employment is not really where they want to be anymore, is not working out for them. Self-employment can be a really great option for them. So we focus around the state, we focus only on rural economies. Obviously here we are a rural economy. So folks who are underserved, under-resourced, micro enterprises, pre-venture and early stage, those are the folks that we work with. And a lot of times the folks we work with, there was a gap, and that's why we saw value in kind of stepping in and filling that gap. If you want to think about it in baseball terms, we're the minor leagues. You don't have a major league player if he doesn't have time to build up skills and come up through the minor leagues to get to the big leagues. And that's really where there's a gap between, I think I want to start a business and I've got a thriving enterprise. And we fill that gap. We help people get across that. And so we are a part of the Small Business Development Center in Washington. We are a small business development center. And really the vision that our executive director, Mike Skinner, some of you know Mike, he's been building this and working on this for 20 some years. Started back at Highline College in South Seattle area, partnering with the SBDC advisor there to sort of build folks up and hand them off. And so that's really what we do is, and so we're constantly getting referrals from the EDCs, from the SBDC, from other organizations. This person is really ready for you, and not quite ready for us. So that's, and then the fundamental thing, because we do emphasize folks who are under-resourced at times, we want to make sure that what we're helping people build is going to be financially self-sufficient. And so when we're taking somebody through one of our courses to test the feasibility of their business, we don't want them to say, well, yeah, I'm going to be able to just barely make it with this business. Let's go. Like, no, we want you to have a nice cushion, build for your future, build that generational wealth, which you see here on the slide. And so that's a big focus of us. And that's that bottom line of financial self-sufficiency. So what do we mean when we talk about economic inclusion for all? It really is a big tent. And it actually just got bigger because the SBDC and the SBA has just changed their definition of underserved entrepreneurs to include anybody that's rural. So that's everybody on the peninsula, and women, which we had already kind of had them in our definition of that, but that is officially SBA as well now. And it is true, we're all, I think, pretty familiar with the wage gap for in the corporate world. That same wage gap exists in entrepreneurship, almost identical wage gap for women entrepreneurs as opposed to male entrepreneurs. And male entrepreneurs are something like still 65% of all entrepreneurs. So there's that as well. So people of the global majority, BIPOC, LGBTQ plus, folks who have been incarcerated or justice involved, is definitely a group of folks we really prioritize, in part because quite often employment can be challenging. And so reentry can be really challenging, and self-employment is quite often the best option for folks.
But then, so Rick, starting up a business takes capital. So how would someone that's justice involved or recently out of jail/prison that maybe has a felony record, how would they generate any capital if they can't even get employment?
Right. So, and I'll touch on this in a minute, but our focus is really on helping people start with the minimum amount possible. And so in that case, quite often what is the best path forward is probably some kind of a service business where not a lot of equipment is required, not a lot of startup capital is required, and you can get in and begin building a reputation and building revenue. And so there are pathways that folks who really just don't have any startup capital to speak of, and that is where that's really our specialty. That's our sweet spot, because they are very challenging clients to work with for other economic development organizations, and a lot of this comes to, all of us as economic development organizations have to show numbers. We have to show results. And so depending on what your metrics are, you just might not be able to work with some folks, right? I call, you may have heard of a term within economic development, especially for underserved folks, which is called patient capital. And this might be, revenue-based repayment plans or different ways of getting capital into folks' hands, that is going to allow them a longer runway to begin paying it back. Well, I think of CIE as patient advising. We we have the freedom because of the way we're funded and what we're funded to do. We have more freedom to spend more time before we see tangible results. And so we're able to, that's where we bridge that gap between the, you know, the business as usual economic development organizations. And that's really, you know, where our value is to an economy, is that we can help those folks become, you know, really thriving, revenue generating businesses where they might not have been able to do it otherwise. That leap was too far. Folks with disabilities, very similar. Quite often employment, regular 40-hour-a-week employment can be really challenging for folks with you know, a whole range of disabilities. If you're able to sort of set your own schedule and, you know, create whatever flexibility you need to generate your income, that can be you know, that sometimes is the best path forward as well. And we really got our start as an organization in South Seattle working with the immigrant communities, and that's still a priority. And one that I don't have on here, but is definitely a very high priority for us, is working with the tribes. And you know, as you know, each tribe is very unique and different, and some have more of a culture of entrepreneurship, and others really don't have as many you know, entrepreneurs. It's more about the tribal enterprises, but within those communities where there is a lot of you know, small business ownership, we work closely with them. We particularly, well, I have one partner that I'll talk about in a second as well. Yeah.
Rick, I may have missed it, but PGM, what does, I know BIPOC, Black,
Yeah.
Indigenous, people of color, which would loop in tribal members, but PGM, what's that?
It is people of the global majority, and among some folks, it's a preferred term over BIPOC.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yep.
Okay.
So
And Mike
yeah.
Maxwell had a question. Do you want me to read it, Mike? Or yeah, please
No,
ask it.
I can chime in. Thanks, Rick. I may have missed this early if you mentioned it, but you referenced how CIE is funded. Have you covered that? What your funding sources are?
Haven't yet.
Oh, gotcha. That's probably coming.
But I'm good. Yeah, I will. Yeah.
I'll be patient.
Yeah. No worries. No worries. And I see, Micah, you're doing a great job answering questions in the chat. Yeah, I think you're answering exactly. With nonprofits, Micah's right on. We can help with revenue generating nonprofits. So for instance, I was having a conversation with the Port Townsend Film Festival the other day. They're not a client, but we were just chatting, and he was like, well, could you help us? And I'm like, well, yeah, we could give you some advice on the, you know, marketing and operations and finances of the revenue generating portion. Now, we can't do that under the purview of the Small Business Development Center. We're not necessarily going to get any credit for those numbers, but we do value our other nonprofit organizations in the community, and we'll absolutely sit down and work with you. We have to be very selective because we've got to, you know, be working with for-profit businesses primarily. If a nonprofit is primarily a donor-driven, grant-funded operation, that's not really our expertise. So we will direct you somewhere else. Yeah. Okay, I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover on this slide. Again, remember, this is the first time through this deck. I'm like, where's the next?
So I would like to share that the SBDC and the NCIE don't, because of their funds through SBA, don't support nonprofits, but Clallam County EDC does. So we're a good typical supportive resource for that.
And I think that's one thing that I also meant to say earlier when I showed that ecosystem slide of all the different kind of business support agencies and organizations on the peninsula, we all work really closely together, and there's no wrong door. So if you come to us, if you send somebody our way and we're like, yeah, you've been in business for 4 years, or you're doing, you're looking to sell your business, we're going to refer you over to Sharon Ann Hamilton at the SBDC, or to Colleen, whoever seems like the right fit. Yeah, so for a variety of reasons, if you don't fit in our lane, we have direct line to get you to the right place, and vice versa. If somebody comes into Colleen who's really very pre-venture, I have this idea, they get sent over to us. So there's no wrong door, no, you will get an answer. It doesn't matter who you go to. Just so if we get referrals from the chambers, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of our other key referral partners. So, oh, great. I'm glad that helped, Julia. All right. So one of I'm going to talk a little bit about one of our key tools. We run a training every month, although we take about a month off every year, typically August. But other than that, we teach this class every month. It is 4 2-hour sessions plus 2 to 3 follow-up sessions, one-on-one follow-up sessions with a business advisor. We teach it over Zoom now. Thank you, COVID, permanently changing the way the world works. It's really designed to be a feasibility assessment. So we call it a training. We're teaching people how to assess the feasibility of their business idea. Along the way, they get some business 101, how to evaluate your market. Here you're seeing a cash flow projection that is generated. And we have people develop a break even. And then we will go over the homework with them afterwards. And it's really designed to get to a quick go, no-go decision. Is this a good idea? Rather than jumping in, starting a business, getting 6 months down the road and going, this doesn't work. So don't look at the numbers too closely, Colleen. I have no idea what. So
I was curious what the cash out items were.
So this is really where we help people get a really clear understanding of, is this business going to work, or how is this business going to work? And we also talk a little bit about, like, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? What does it take to be an entrepreneur? Is this really what you want to sign up for? And even though and we do have people go, yeah, actually, you know what? Now that I'm looking at it, this isn't for me. And while we don't get a measurable impact for that, there's still value there. And sometimes people go away and think about it and go, okay, now I'm ready. And they'll come back to us later. And so that is our primary training that we offer. It's a really great class. We've actually we're just rolling out a sort of a revamped, updated version of it. And it feels like it's real. People are really responding to it. And last month we had, from Clallam County, we had a bookkeeping business and a mechanic and a tile setter, which I kind of referred to earlier. So yeah.
So Rick, what do you tell people that, as a rule of thumb, they should expect to be able to pay themselves through a salary or an officer draw or something like that?
We don't tell people what they should pay themselves necessarily, because part of what we do in the class is we actually have people do a review of their personal finances.
Okay.
Part of the reason we do that is it's a really good exercise. If you're gonna run a business, you're gonna have to be intimately familiar with your numbers, right, Lena? And so so this is a place where they can start that process. If they're unfamiliar with it, they can start just with their own personal financing and start to flex that muscle and get a comfort level there. But we also
And that makes sense because then
Yeah.
they can figure out, okay, I'm going to need this much money to break even monthly.
Yeah, and we do break even a little bit differently.
Okay.
We roll in whatever their living expenses are, that whatever their financial goal is that they need to meet. And again, that can vary from business to business because maybe you're only needing to generate half of the funds for your family. So it's not your entire, household budget that this business needs to cover. Or maybe this is, quite often, in our rural economies, people will do 2 or 3 different businesses, seasonal or otherwise. And so maybe this is only needing to be 30% of your annual household income. So we let them figure that answer out for themselves.
Good.
And then we roll that into the break even number at the end to say, basically, how many cupcakes are you going to need to sell to make this much money? And that's really kind of the bottom line feasibility. Can I do that? Is there enough market? Do I have enough capacity? Is that realistic? The other piece of that personal finance, as long as we're talking about it, that we have people do is we have them do a net worth statement. And it's really useful to get that snapshot because then they kind of have a sense of, well, do I have any capital to contribute to starting this business? And if not, that's not like I said, it's not necessarily a deal breaker. We just have to be creative and figure out how to reduce the amount of capital they need or find capital for them to use. But also the lovely thing about that net worth statement right at the beginning of your entrepreneurship journey is you can look back on that and go, wow, look how I have grown my wealth with this business. So we like to kind of have them plant that flag in the ground as well. Actually, Michelle or Micah, could you drop a link to the training in the chat? So the registration page. So this is a really great way to just get out there, kick the tires on your business idea, start to engage with us. And it's really the kind of the front door that we like to have everybody walk through. Some folks come to us, they're early stage, the horse is out of the barn, this isn't as valuable for them. But even people who've been in business a while find this class super useful because it helps them really understand where are my profit centers? Where am I not making money? Where, what should I quit doing or change how I'm doing or increase my prices, or where can I lower my costs? So it's a really good basic evaluation tool for an early stage business as well.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna add something to that.
yeah, go for it.
Something that our clients have been really appreciative of is we take a concept first approach in the class, where we teach them what it is that we're trying to teach them and then follow it up with the vocabulary. Whereas when you go out there on the internet or to a lot of other resources, they're expecting you to already have that level of business vocab, and people will get swamped just trying to figure out what people are saying to them.
Yeah, and what we use in the course is we have a case study of David's cakes, and he's starting this cake business, and we just use that case study all the way through the market evaluation, the branding, the sales units, pricing, costs, cash flow, break even. We're using David as the example through that whole process. And it really helps people get a sense of, oh, okay, this is how I do it for my own business. So, all right. Any questions at this point? Oh, that was not what I wanted to do. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so a couple key referral partners that I want to specifically mention. Elwha Tribal Vocational Rehabilitation. This is basically the tribal equivalent of DVR, the state's Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. I think there are 6 of them around the state. They serve regions. So Elwha TVR serves all the peninsula tribes, and I think including Port Gamble, S'Klallam. And mostly what they're doing is getting folks job ready, but those folks who come through the door and are interested in doing self-employment, they send them to us, and we help them we take them basically through the Start Simple that I just described, help them build out their business model, put together a business plan, and submit it so that they can get some of the TVR funding to help start their business. And we've helped quite a few tribal members start businesses through that program. So that's one that we really, really love. And then WorkSource is a phenomenal referral partner for us. We get so many referrals from them. And that's in large part because we are a self-employment assistance program provider. And the SEEP program is a really great program through ESD, where if you are either in an industry which is really challenging to get employment, or if you are, a lot of times it's folks of a certain age, my beard color, who are having challenges with staying employed. They're kind of getting aged out, and it's time for them to start their own business. They can, if they've been laid off, they're receiving unemployment benefits. They can, instead of having to do 3 job search activities per week, they can instead come work with us, take Start Simple, and get into a one-on-one business advising relationship where we set up milestones that they need to do anyway to start their business. And that's basically their replacement for the job search activities. And we've helped a lot of folks start businesses through that program. I love it because it gives people also a runway to get their business started. They're receiving their unemployment benefits to give them that kind of that base income while they get their business rolling. So it's a really great program. I wanted to plug that one as well. And it's one that not a lot of people know about. Even a lot of WorkSource employees don't know about it. So it's not well publicized. And so I like to let people know about it. So here's just a quick overview of what we've done so far. And these, I went back to the beginning of time just to give you a sense. This is starting in basically September of 2019. So yeah, we've served 418 clients, 2,863 advising hours. We've helped 71 new businesses get started. And we've had people, and again, this is all self-reported basically, had 2,380,000 plus of increased revenues and 2,885,000 plus of capital funding. Now, a lot of that, must acknowledge, a lot of that is COVID. Thank you very much. So, that's not typically the main business we're in. And so actually, very interestingly, with my team at the beginning of this year, I said, hey, I want to change our metric, not to the amount of capital funding, the dollar sign of a capital funding, but the number of instances of capital funding, the number of businesses that we've helped get that 3,000, that 12,000 to get rolling. Because most of the folks we work with are unbankable. They need less than 50,000, probably less than 25,000 to get rolling. They don't necessarily have 2 years of history to qualify for a bank loan. So really what we're doing is we're finding little pockets of money here and there, and we have access to a program, well, you know about it, Colleen, called Kiva. So that's an option, as well as our local investment networks. So I switched our metrics to be the number of the instances of capital infusion. 6 months later, the SBA came along and said, by the way, for 2024, we're changing this. And I was convinced they have I'm wiretapped here. But anyway, so so we're all going to be switching to really measuring how many people get capital as opposed to how much capital. Although we're obviously going to continue to measure this because I think it's valuable to know. But the metric we're going to be measured by and graded on is actually going to be how many people get capital, not how much capital it is.
I just recently helped a business that's in does excavating, and two very capable guys, and they needed to get another dump truck, but they had not been in business for more than 2 years. So they didn't have 2 years of tax returns. And yeah, I started with Kiva with them, and then the Coin Column Opportunity Investment Networks that Mark Abshire does a great job of managing. And then though, anyway, I knew a particular individual that said frequently will give a loan if there's collateral to be had, which in this case there would have been with the dump truck, and he loaned them I think it was $38,000 at 12% interest. And so another thing for people to know, if you're trying to get, like, I think the minimum that Craft 3, which is a CDFI, a Certified Development Financial Institution, the minimum they'll do is $50,000. And banks, Rick's talked about being bankable, you know, they might do 50, but they want to do higher than that, because the whole process to evaluate whether they'll loan money is pretty much the same for a $1 million loan as it is for a $50,000 loan. It takes the same amount of time, the same process. And so they definitely have minimums, and those points that they charge at the beginning to get the loan, it's not, you know, if it's 2 points or 2% and they're only lending $10,000, that's $200. That doesn't cover their, you know, $20,000 cost to evaluate it. So that's why they have these minimum thresholds of which they will loan on.
Yeah, and that's why we're always looking for these other resources. And I'm going to talk about Coin here in a minute. So these are numbers. Numbers are great, but I wanted to share just a few example success stories, which I think can actually be more helpful to understand kind of the work that we do. And actually, Micah, I'm going to punt this one to you. This is your client. Why don't you talk a little bit about? Well, I'll preface it with saying that we've actually had a relationship with, this is Shaylee Evans at Goodness Tea. We've had a relationship with Shaylee for a long time, because prior to starting in 2019, we had run the Coastworks competition out here, and she was actually one of the winners of that business competition. So we've been working with Shaylee a long time, but she's recently had some really great things happen. Go, Micah, I'll let you lead it.
Yeah, so if any of you haven't seen her around, you likely have, but Shaylee's doing something real cool where she's doing very transparent financials, and with the chocolate industry, it's, if you're buying a chocolate bar from a bigger company, they are making a lot of money by underpaying folks who are growing the chocolate. So Shaylee's built in reparations to the price of each chocolate bar, and is very clear about it. People can see where the money is going and how much is going each quarter as she sells her chocolate. And she also she's really trying to help other folks in the area make money on stuff that they can grow easily without putting much effort into it. So it's a real strong approach on local sourcing and spreading the revenue throughout the community.
Yeah, and another another venture she's involved in right now is launching Olympic Mountain Growers Cooperative. And that should be rolling out, working with the Northwest Cooperative Development Corporation. Is that what they're called? Anyway, right now to roll out that cooperative, which is going to serve folks all across growers all across the peninsula. And also, I think a really big success for her, she had been trying for years to purchase and own land, and she finally was able to buy the farm that she had been farming for a while now, just north of Squim. And so we were excited to be able to help her with that process as well. We're getting short on time, so you take this one as well, Micah. This is also your client. I stole all your clients for our success stories.
Yeah, so Sawtooth Ranch, they're a sheep farm out there in Joyce. They do mixed vegetables and shepherding as well. And the biggest help that we've really, as Billy said, we helped them take it from something that they were spending money on into a way that was helping them survive. And they're doing a lot of really cool stuff with other nonprofits in the area, the Salmon Coalition and the Conservation, because they are out near Salt Creek, and they're doing a approach using the sheep to kind of re-fertilize the forests around there, and planting barriers and native plants and fencing to help reduce any pollution getting into the salmon stream. Yeah,
because Salt Creek actually runs right through a property that they lease and run their sheep on. So they're doing a lot of really good work to protect that watershed. And you may recognize Billy. He's very involved in the Port Angeles Farmers Market, used to manage it, is on the board. So yeah. All right. And got one more. And this also your client, but I'll run with this one, Micah. We had been working with Jacqueline Baresh for a while. And then we, in the first half of this year, we did our Green Equity Accelerator, which was kind of a new experiment for us. We got some funding from BECU to focus on green business. And so we did this program, and Jackie was one of the participants and graduate of that. But her business is she's a single mom. She needed something that gave her some flexibility. She's got a single mom, I think, and has a special needs child, and she wanted flexibility. And so she said, I need to run it. I need to start a business. And so she looked around, she thought about soap making, but there's a lot of competition. And so she said, hey, I'm going to do shampoo. And so she does shampoo bars. And so by avoiding putting shampoo into plastic, she has an immediate environmental benefit, and she's going gangbusters. She's gotten into a bunch of stores over in the I-5 corridor. She's in conversations with some buyers over in the Spokane area. She's looking down into Portland. She's just really kind of starting to grow. And so what I love about this story is you've got, you can see this is her workshop in her cabin between Squim and PA. And she's pulling revenue onto the peninsula from all over Washington. And so that's one of what I think is one of the beauties of these homegrown small businesses is we can sort of reverse the cash flow and start pulling money onto the peninsula by helping these entrepreneurs be super successful. All right. I want to, so Michael, to your question, here's where I'm going to acknowledge our amazing partners. So we are funded, a lot of our funding does come from the SBA through the SBDC, because we are an SBDC center. But all that federal money has to be 100% matched locally. So so our local funders are really critical. And when our executive director Mike Skinner came to town with this crazy idea that we should partner with the SBDC, he shopped it around, and we had some early adopters that were really critical for us to kind of get this thing rolling and see if this was a good idea, because frankly we had no idea if this was going to work. And so I just want to really acknowledge Clallam County came on board very early on with some, again, we needed seed funding, and we are a very entrepreneurial organization. So we walk the talk as well. And they gave us some early seed funding. City of Sequim gave us some of that early seed funding. Port Angeles, and they also give us a reduced rent rate. That's where we're located, is in the Port Angeles building. And Colleen, have you ever provided funding to us?
Yes, we have. We have
So.
actually.
Yeah. So Colleen has been another funder. So these and City of Port Angeles is also, thank you very much, Calvin. So these are really important for us. And also I think, that dollar amount, it feels magnified, right? Just being able to put this slide up here and say, these folks support what we're doing. We have a relationship with these folks. It gives us credibility in the community when we're going out into the community. And we also feel like these are real partnerships where we are able to kind of come together, have ideas, see how we can, how can we make the peninsula a better place for micro enterprises and folks coming on board. So deep appreciation and gratitude to all the folks on this list and more. So many folks have supported us. The chambers have been great. So how can you help? It wouldn't be a good nonprofit if I didn't have an ask at the end. A key way is to be a referral partner. If you hear of somebody who's thinking about starting a business, please send them to us. Like I said, no wrong door. If we're not the right fit, we know who is. And we're always looking for mentors. If you are interested in mentoring a small business, and that can look like anything. It could be meeting with somebody one time. It could be ongoing, once a month, once every other month, kind of a relationship. Please sign up. We've got, like I said, we have the coffee shop platform, and we can get you plugged in, and we've got entrepreneurs eagerly awaiting mentors. And finally, we are a nonprofit, and so we are always looking for additional funding, and donations from individuals are the best kind of funding we can get, because it allows us to kind of run our operation rather than be purely project focused like grants, which is the bulk of our funding. I guess I didn't finish that question, Michael. So we also apply for a lot of grants. Mike is constantly scanning the horizon like a hungry dinosaur, looking for grants to apply for. And he's really good at getting them. Sometimes it means a lot more work for us, but he gets them, and it keeps us in business. So we have that mix of federal funding, local funding, and then grant funding. We've gotten grants from First Fed Foundation, BECU, and Medina, a number of organizations that have looked at our track record and said, wow, we really want to get behind this, and have pitched in to help us continue to grow. As I said, we're in 4 regions. We just hired 2 new people in our Mount Vernon office, which I think brings us to 15 statewide. So the model's working, and people like it, and so we want to keep doing it. So if you are interested, we are always welcoming donations. We are also looking for folks who are interested in providing some pro bono services, so this is my advise box here. If you have bookkeeping skills, legal, any of those things that businesses need, but these early stage micro enterprises can't really afford. We call those leveraged hours within the Small Business Development Center, and we are actually kind of tasked with going out and finding those folks who would be able to provide leveraged hours to our clients. So if that is something that's of interest to you, it's kind of different than a mentoring relationship. It's much more, hey, I have this very specific accounting question. And you'd be willing to provide some pro bono accounting advice. That is super welcome, and we'd love to talk to you if that's something you could do. And then also shop. Please shop local. Support these local enterprises. Go to your farmers market. See who's there. There's some great folks. Go to Country Air and Sunny Farms. They carry a lot of our local products, and so that's something we always encourage folks to do. The best thing you can do is contribute to the revenue, the top line of these businesses, and then invest. Over in Jefferson County, there's a really robust Lion local investment opportunity network, really strong network of local investors. They've put $10 million into small businesses over there over the last 10 years or so. And Mark Abshire has been rolling out Clallam Opportunity Investment Network. So it's the equivalent. And I really encourage you, you actually don't have to be some high wealth individual to be a really effective local investor. This year I've helped clients over in Jefferson County get almost $100,000 in Lion loans. And I really would love to see that same robust local investing network here in Clallam. So I'm always pushing that. Go talk to Mark. It's or the website is clallaminvest.org, I think. If you want to drop that in the chat. Julia, excellent, love it. Julia, you can reach out to Michelle to get connected. It is clallaminvest.com. Thank you for correcting that. So those are the ways you can help, and we welcome. We value community. We love to. In fact, one of our kind of goals is building a community of entrepreneurs. That's why we go and do these networking events. And I am a minute over, so I will be quiet. But there is our contact information. We are in the Port Angeles building. That's the number to call if you want to get in touch with us. And yeah, there's no time, but do you have any questions?
Great. Thanks so much, Rick. And we will have these the slides and the presentation up on our website later on today. We really appreciate the partnership. And also now that SBA is saying that all rural businesses are considered underserved. So, if it's a white guy in Squim that's trying to start up a business and doesn't have a huge wad of cash to get going, they qualify as well too. And, he's trying to support his family, and everybody's important. So I'm really happy that the tent is broad for our community. That's critically important.
It is really broad. I will say, like we don't turn anybody in Clallam County and Jefferson County can come and take Start Simple.
That's great.
Anybody away from that. Once they finish the class, if they're a better fit for Sharon Ann or they're a better fit for Colleen's team, then we will point them that way. But anybody and everybody can come take Start Simple, and we'll work with them and figure out where they're at and then take it from there.
That's terrific. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And thanks for joining us. And Rick, Micah, Michelle, thanks for all you do. We're very grateful and happy that we have a good partnership. All right. Enjoy your day, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.